To navigate between the different screens in CenterPoint, there are 3 different options. You can use the drop-down menus at the top, the toolbar icons, or the QuickList. If you are talking to someone in our support department or reading any of our help documentation, you'll always get instructions to go through the drop-down menus at the top. For example, to get to the account setup screen, it will say go to Setup, Accounts, and then Accounts. The reason for that is because the drop-down menus at the top of the screen contain access to every single different screen in the program. The QuickList and the toolbars are all customizable, so you can add different menus and take different menus off. And so we never know if you have access to accounts on your QuickList, for example, so we will always tell you to go through the setup. So if there's something you can't find and you're looking in your QuickList, chances are you can find it in the drop-down menus at the top. The drop-down menus are organized into sections. Under the File menu is where you can create a new database, open or close a database, do backups, access your preferences. View is to view reminders, your quick list, your toolbars. Processes is where all the transactions are done. Payments, receipts, invoices, journal entries. If you have payroll, all the payroll transactions, running a pay run is done from the processes menu. Reports is where you find all of the reports, as well as the federal and state payroll forms and reports. Reporting tools has things like the budgets and the transaction search. Setup is where all the setup is done. Customers, vendors, employees, accounts, profit centers, all under setup. The window is just kind of a standard Windows menu that lets you arrange your windows. And then finally, the help menu is where you go not only to get to help, but also to check for updates and do any registration. So all of the different screens in the program are found through those drop-down menus. However, sometimes they are kind of buried, and if there's screens you use all the time, it is easier to access them through the toolbars. So our toolbar here has different icons for some commonly used options. And if you hover over any individual picture, it will show you what screen that opens. So here, this one is for journal entries, or this one here is for accounts. And clicking on one of these will bring up that menu, just as if you found it through the drop-downs. You can customize these toolbars. As you can see, they are kind of broken out into sections. So here, these first 4 in one section, and they correspond to the File menu. And then these ones here correspond to the Processes menu. And you can grab these whole sections and you can drag them around. You can change their order. You can stack them up differently if you'd like. So if you want your setup before your processes. You can also right-click in the toolbars, and that gives you the option to just remove entire toolbars or add them back on. Or come down here into Customize and choose which menu items you would like. So here, if there is a menu you access all the time and we don't have it in the toolbar, you can say, okay, to my comment setup toolbar, I'd like to edit that, and I'd like to add, and you can add any of our screens to that toolbar. Just by selecting the screen and clicking Add, that adds it to the toolbar, and then you can even move it up and down this list. Top to bottom is left to right, so if you want the new one to be the first one you add, you just want to click and move it up the list. Now if I click OK, it added that company's icon to my toolbar. If you do want to get back to your default toolbars, you can do that by going to File, Administration, and then Restore Default Toolbars. So don't worry if you want to play with it, we always have the ability to go back to the way it came out of the box. A menu that I find even more helpful than the toolbars is the QuickList, and that is this tool or this menu here on the side of the screen. It is organized into sections. So here's one called Sales, and here are common screens having to do with sales. Here's one with purchases. Here's one for financial and management reporting that has reports on it. Once again, these are completely customizable. So you can right-click on a section, and you can go to Manage Items, and you can pick from any of our menu items to add to this section by finding where it would be on the menu. finding the one you want to add and clicking Add. That will add it. You can also add reports to this list, so it doesn't just have to be menu items. The QuickList can be a report that you run all the time by coming to the Reports tab and finding the report that you would like to add to the QuickList. And you can rename, add groups, change groups, all just by right-clicking. You can add an entire new group. So I've got an entire new group just for me, and I can come in here and manage items and choose which items I want to have in that group. Now the QuickList does take up some real estate on the screen, so if you don't have a widescreen monitor and you don't want to see it all the time, you can click this little auto hide. It looks like a thumbtack, and that will make it so the QuickList slides off the screen, and then when you want it, you just hover your mouse over it and it will pop right back up. You hit the thumbtack back in, then it will stay planted on the side of the screen. And if you don't like the QuickList at all, you can hit the X and take it right off. If you want the QuickList back, it's under View QuickList. And if you've made changes to your QuickList and just want to get back to how it started, once again, you can go to File, Administration, and then Restore Default QuickList to get it back to the one that came when you first installed. Another great thing about the QuickList is that it keeps track of all the windows you have open in the program. CenterPoint lets you open multiple windows and switch between them. So if you're in Setup Accounts, and then you're also in Setup Customers, and then you came under Processes and went to Enter a Transaction, you can have all of those screens open at the same time, and the QuickList will show you which ones you have open and let you quickly switch back and forth between them.